Welcome back to the Way to Native Chronicles. Before we get into today's topic, let me share a bit about myself. I've been married to a wonderful First Nations woman with treaty status for 49 years. That means I've had quite a bit of exposure to Indigenous perspectives and concerns. And I know that for many Indigenous people in Alberta, one of the biggest questions about separation is what happens to their treaties. That's an important discussion and one that deserves careful thought. Today, we're diving into an issue that's not only controversial but also deeply personal for many Albertans, our future in Canada. With federal restrictions on firearms, energy policies strangling our economy, and now unsettling questions about property rights, including firearms rights, it's no wonder that separatist sentiment is growing. But what if I told you that, legally speaking, your land in Canada isn't as secure as you think? And what if I told you that Alberta might be better off standing on its own? Stick with me while we unpack this. The link to the article shown by the Fraser Institute will be posted in this video's description, but let me summarize. In November, a New Brunswick court ruled that 7 companies could be removed from an Aboriginal land claims case. On the surface, this might seem like a win for private property rights, but it's actually the opposite. The judge made it clear, just because private owners can't be sued directly doesn't mean they won't lose their land. Instead, the government may step in, expropriate the land, and hand it over to Aboriginal groups. Now, let that sink in. Your private land taken because the Constitution of Canada doesn't explicitly protect property rights. How did we get here? Back in 1968, Pierre Trudeau actually wanted to include property rights in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. But some provincial leaders refused, and by the time the Constitution was finalized in 1982, property rights had been scrapped. The end result, your land ownership in Canada is not a constitutionally protected right. Now, here's the truly shocking part. Under our current Constitution, the only people with real, constitutionally protected property rights are, guess who? Those with treaty status. Let that sink in. If you are a non-Indigenous Canadian, your property is at the mercy of government policy. But if you are a treaty status Indigenous person, your property rights are constitutionally enshrined under Section 35. Courts have consistently expanded the interpretation of Indigenous land claims while leaving non-Indigenous property owners without any comparable constitutional protection. This creates a fundamental imbalance. Section 35 has been used to strengthen Aboriginal title, while non-Indigenous property owners have no equivalent safeguard. That means, as we've seen in cases like the Wolastoqey claim, landowners can be forced to surrender their property if the government decides to expropriate it for Indigenous land claims. Sound fair to you? What does this mean for Alberta? First, if land claims continue to expand, property owners, whether individuals, businesses, or entire industries, are at risk. And let's not forget that the federal government has already shown a complete disregard for Alberta's economic future. The energy industry is under siege from Ottawa's restrictive policies, and gun owners are facing sweeping bans that target rural Albertans disproportionately. Now we see that even land ownership could be taken away with the stroke of a government pen. This isn't just about land, it's about control. Ottawa makes decisions that affect Alberta without considering our interests. If we had our own constitution, if we had control over our own laws, we wouldn't be at the mercy of federal courts or governments that don't have our backs. Now let's talk about something that often gets overlooked in the separation discussion. How Alberta's prosperity could directly benefit First Nations. Right now, much of the revenue that Alberta generates is siphoned off by Ottawa, leaving less money for infrastructure, healthcare and social programs right here at home. But imagine if Alberta controlled 100% of its resources and wealth. With full fiscal autonomy, Alberta could provide far better, more direct support to Indigenous communities. Roads, schools, healthcare, and clean water, those wouldn't be stuck in the bureaucratic limbo in Ottawa. Instead, Alberta could work directly with First Nations to ensure treaties are fully honored without interference from a federal government that has historically failed to meet its obligations. The key here is economic independence. By retaining more of Alberta's wealth, First Nations could have a stronger voice in determining how treaty commitments are met. Separation isn't about division. It's about taking control of our future, making sure no one in Alberta, Indigenous or non-Indigenous, is left behind. First, we need to demand property rights be enshrined in law. Alberta's government must take a stand and pass provincial protections. Second, Alberta must challenge federal interference in our economy and land policies. The more control we give up to Ottawa, the weaker our position becomes. Finally, let's have an honest conversation about Alberta's future. If Canada continues to ignore our rights, why should we stay in a system that disadvantages us? This isn't about resentment, it's about survival. Other nations have broken away to secure their rights and economic freedom. Should Alberta consider the same? What do you think? Is Alberta's best path forward within Canada, or is it time to forge our own way? Let me know in the comments, and if you found this video insightful, make sure to like, subscribe, and share. And of course, your support of this channel is very much appreciated. You can use a super thanks button for that, or there's a link to buy me a coffee in the description. But until next time, this is The Way to Native Chronicles, and this is where we discuss the truths that others won't. Catch you next time. Did you like this video? If you did, I think you're gonna like this one right over here. So check it out. And I appreciate your subscribing if you haven't done so already. Remember to do that while you're watching this next video. Click like, it all helps us out for this channel. Catch you next time.